The rain drummed against the windows of Marcus Chin's cramped apartment with a relentless rhythm that seemed to mock his empty wallet. In the corner of the living room sat a magnificent grand piano, its ebony surface marred by water stains and scratches. One leg wobbled precariously, and several keys stuck when pressed. It was a beast of an instrument that had somehow found its way into his modest two-bedroom home through a classified ad that promised easy money for piano restoration. What the ad hadn't mentioned was that the piano belonged to someone whose name would make most people's hearts skip a beat. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus had been working 3 jobs to keep his 8-year-old daughter Emma fed and housed since his wife Sarah died in a car accident 2 years ago. By day, he cleaned office buildings downtown. In the evenings, he delivered food for a local restaurant. And on weekends, he picked up odd handyman jobs wherever he could find them. His hands were permanently stained with grease and cleaning chemicals. His back ached constantly, and his eyes burned from exhaustion. But he never complained. Emma was his world, and he would move mountains to give her the stability she deserved. The piano restoration job had come at the perfect time. Emma needed new school clothes. Their rent was 2 weeks overdue, and the electricity bill threatened disconnection. When Marcus saw the listing asking for someone to repair a water-damaged grand piano, offering $500 upon completion, he jumped at the opportunity despite having no formal training in piano restoration. His father had been a carpenter, and Marcus had inherited both his tools and his stubborn determination to figure out any mechanical problem through patience and persistence. The piano arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, delivered by 2 burly movers who seemed relieved to be rid of their burden. They explained that the instrument had been damaged in a flood at a storage facility, and the owner wanted it restored to playing condition but couldn't be bothered with the details. They provided no contact information except for a phone number to call when the work was finished. The piano itself was clearly expensive, probably worth more than Marcus made in 3 years, but it looked like it had been through a war. Emma was fascinated by the massive instrument that now dominated their small living room. She traced her tiny fingers along the ivory keys, pressing them gently to hear the discordant sounds that emerged. Some keys produced no sound at all, others stuck halfway down, and a few created jarring buzzes that made them both wince. Despite its sorry condition, there was something majestic about the piano that filled their humble apartment with an unexpected sense of grandeur. Marcus began his research immediately, spending hours at the local library reading everything he could find about piano restoration. He learned about hammer mechanisms, damper systems, key weighting, and string tension. He watched countless online tutorials on his phone, taking notes in a worn notebook that he kept in his tool bag. The complexity of the task became clear quickly. This wasn't just about fixing a few broken keys. It was about understanding the intricate engineering that made a piano sing. The first week was devoted to careful disassembly. Marcus worked only in the evenings after Emma went to bed, laying out each component on towels spread across the floor. He photographed everything with his phone camera, creating a visual map of how the piano would eventually go back together. The water damage was extensive. The soundboard was warped, many strings had snapped or corroded, and the action mechanism was seized with rust and swollen wood. Emma became his unofficial assistant, handing him tools and asking endless questions about how pianos worked. She had always been curious about music, often humming melodies she heard on the radio or at school, but they had never been able to afford music lessons. As Marcus explained the mechanics of how hammers struck strings to create sound, Emma's eyes lit up with understanding and wonder. The second week brought the real challenges. Marcus discovered that several of the piano's ribs were cracked, requiring delicate wood repairs that tested his carpentry skills to their limit. He couldn't afford professional piano repair supplies, so he improvised with materials from the hardware store, carefully adapting woodworking techniques to the unique demands of piano construction. Each evening became a meditation of sorts. with Marcus losing himself in the precise, careful work while Emma did her homework at the kitchen table nearby. During the third week, Marcus tackled the piano's action mechanism. Each key was connected to a complex system of levers, springs, and hammers that had to be perfectly regulated for the instrument to play properly. He spent hours adjusting tiny screws and shims, testing each key repeatedly until the touch and response felt right. His fingers began to understand the subtle differences in how each key should feel, developing a sensitivity he never knew he possessed. Emma's interest in the piano grew stronger each day. She began staying up past her bedtime to watch her father work, asking if she could try playing once the piano was fixed. Marcus promised her that she would be the first to play a song when the restoration was complete, a promise that gave him extra motivation during the most frustrating moments of the repair process. The fourth week was dedicated to restringing. Marcus had to remove every string, clean the tuning pins, and install new wire with precisely calculated tension. This was perhaps the most nerve-wracking part of the entire process, as too much tension could crack the soundboard while too little would leave the piano unable to hold its tuning. He worked with the concentration of a surgeon, measuring twice and cutting once, knowing that a single mistake could undo weeks of careful work. As the restoration progressed, something unexpected began happening in their small apartment. Neighbors who had never spoken to Marcus before started stopping by to check on the progress. Mrs. Rodriguez from upstairs brought coffee and homemade cookies, curious about the beautiful sounds that had started emerging from the piano as Marcus tested each repaired section. Mr. Thompson from across the hall, a retired music teacher, offered advice about tuning and regulation. Even Emma's school friends began asking to come over to see the magical piano that was slowly coming back to life. The transformation was remarkable not just for the piano, but for their entire living situation. What had once been a cramped, struggling household began feeling like a home filled with purpose and hope. Emma's grades improved as she became more focused and excited about life. Marcus found that the precision and patience required for piano restoration was helping him develop skills that made him more efficient and valuable at his other jobs. Part 2. By the fifth week, Marcus was ready to begin the final regulation and tuning process. This required tools he couldn't afford to buy, so he borrowed what he could and improvised the rest. He crafted tuning lever extensions from scrap metal and fashioned key adjustment tools from modified screwdrivers. Each key had to be individually regulated for proper touch, timing, and sound, a process that required hundreds of tiny adjustments and infinite patience. Emma had become quite knowledgeable about piano mechanics by this point, able to hand her father exactly the tool he needed and explain to curious neighbors how the damper system worked to stop strings from vibrating. Her vocabulary had expanded to include terms like escapement, let off, and aftertouch, words that seemed strange coming from an 8-year-old but filled Marcus with pride at her eagerness to learn. The real test came when Marcus began the initial tuning. He had purchased a cheap electronic tuner with money scraped together from returned bottles.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
And cans, knowing that proper oral tuning was beyond his current skill level. As he slowly brought each string up to proper pitch, the piano began to reveal its true voice. What emerged was a sound of stunning beauty and power, far richer and more resonant than Marcus had dared to hope. The first song Emma played was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, picked out hesitantly with one finger on the newly restored keys. Despite its simplicity, the melody rang out with crystal clarity, filling their small apartment with music that seemed to transform the very air they breathed. Both father and daughter stood in amazement at what they had accomplished together, the months of patient work culminating in this moment of pure joy. Word of the restored piano began to spread throughout their apartment building and into the neighborhood. People Marcus had never met started knocking on their door, asking if they could hear the piano or even try playing it themselves. There, Living room became an impromptu community gathering place, with neighbors sharing stories and music around the beautiful instrument that had risen from near destruction. Mrs. Chun, an elderly woman from 2 buildings over, came by one evening. With tears in her eyes, she explained that she had played piano as a child in China but hadn't touched the keys in 40 years since immigrating to America. Marcus invited her to play, and what followed was a haunting rendition of a traditional Chinese melody that left everyone in the room speechless. The piano had become more than just a repaired instrument. It was a bridge connecting people across generations and cultures. As word continued to spread, Marcus received several requests from neighbors asking if he could repair their own instruments. Mr. Garcia had an old guitar with a cracked neck. Mrs. Petrov had a violin that hadn't been played since her son moved away, and the Morrison family had a keyboard that had stopped working after their youngest child spilled juice on it. Marcus realized that his careful study of piano mechanics had given him transferable skills that could help his community and provide additional income for his family. The 6th week brought an unexpected challenge. Emma came home from school with a notice that her class was preparing for a winter concert, and students who could play instruments were encouraged to perform solo pieces. Emma desperately wanted to participate, but she was still a beginner with only basic skills. Marcus made a decision that would stretch their already tight budget even further. He would find a way to pay for proper piano lessons for his daughter. Marcus contacted Mr. Thompson, the retired music teacher from across the hall, who agreed to give Emma lessons in exchange for Marcus helping him repair some furniture in his apartment. The arrangement worked perfectly, with Emma receiving professional instruction while Marcus gained another satisfied neighbor and friend. Watching his daughter's excitement as she learned to read music and play increasingly complex pieces made every sacrifice worthwhile. The piano's restoration was now essentially complete, but Marcus found himself reluctant to make the phone call that would take it away from them. The instrument had become the centerpiece of their lives, the catalyst for Emma's musical development, and the heart of their small community. However, he knew that keeping it wasn't an option. They needed the promised payment, and he had made a commitment to complete the job. As Marcus prepared to make the call, he spent hours fine-tuning every aspect of the piano's performance. He regulated each key for perfect touch and responsiveness, adjusted the pedals for smooth operation, and polished every surface until the ebony would gleam like black glass. The piano now looked and sounded better than it probably had when it was brand new, a testament to the care and skill that had gone into its restoration. Emma practiced diligently for her school concert, choosing Canon in D as her solo piece. The melody was challenging for her skill level, but she was determined to master it before the piano was taken away. Marcus helped her practice every evening, turning pages and offering encouragement as she worked through difficult passages. The apartment filled with beautiful music each night, creating memories that both father and daughter would treasure forever. The restoration had taken 6 weeks of intensive evening work, 6 weeks that had transformed not just the piano, but Marcus's entire perspective on what he was capable of achieving. He had approached the project as a desperate man seeking quick money to pay bills, but he was ending it as someone who had discovered a hidden talent and passion that could reshape his future. Part 3. The phone call Marcus had been dreading finally came on a cold Thursday evening. The voice on the other end was crisp and professional, belonging to someone who was clearly accustomed to being obeyed without question. The caller identified himself as Richard Sterling, personal assistant to the piano's owner, and announced that they would be coming to inspect the work the following afternoon. There was something in Sterling's tone that suggested this inspection would be far more rigorous than Marcus had anticipated. Marcus spent that night in anxious preparation, cleaning every inch of the piano and making final adjustments to ensure everything was perfect. Emma helped by polishing the bench and organizing the sheet music they had accumulated during the restoration process. Both of them sensed that something significant was about to happen, though neither could have predicted just how dramatically their lives were about to change. The next afternoon, 3 black luxury cars pulled up outside their modest apartment. building, drawing stares from neighbors and children playing in the courtyard. Marcus watched from his window as several impeccably dressed individuals emerged from the vehicles, led by a tall, stern-looking man in an expensive suit who could only be Richard Sterling. Behind them came security personnel and what appeared to be technical experts carrying professional equipment. The knock on Marcus's door was firm and authoritative. When he opened it, he found himself face to face with Richard Sterling, whose penetrating gaze seemed to catalog every detail of Marcus's appearance and humble surroundings in an instant. Sterling introduced himself curtly and requested immediate access to the piano for inspection, his manner suggesting that he expected to find significant problems with the restoration work. What followed was the most thorough and stressful 20 minutes of Marcus's life. Sterling's team of experts examined every aspect of the piano with professional instruments, testing key regulation, checking string tension, measuring hammer alignment, and evaluating the soundboard repairs. They photographed everything, made detailed notes, and whispered among themselves in technical language that Marcus couldn't fully understand. Emma stayed close to her father's side, intimidated by the formal atmosphere and serious faces. Finally, one of the experts, an elderly man with gentle eyes and calloused hands, stepped forward and played a complex classical piece that filled the small apartment with music of breathtaking beauty and power. As the final notes faded away, he turned to Sterling with an expression of amazement and spoke words that would change everything. "This is extraordinary work. Whoever restored this piano has genuine talent and remarkable skill. The action is perfectly regulated, the voicing is superb, and the repairs are nearly invisible. This instrument plays better now than it did when it was new." Sterling's stern expression softened slightly as he processed this information. He looked at Marcus with new interest, taking in the worn work clothes, the tired eyes, and the obvious love and pride with which the man regarded the restored piano. For the first time since arriving, Sterling seemed to see Marcus as more than just a service provider, recognizing the dedication and skill that had gone into the restoration work. The conversation that followed revealed information that left Marcus stunned. The piano, Sterling explained, belonged to Victoria Hartwell, one of the world's most celebrated classical pianists and composers. She was also, though this was less widely known, one of the wealthiest women in the country, having inherited a vast fortune from her industrialist grandfather. The piano was a 1925 Steinway Model D that had been her grandmother's prized possession, damaged in a storage facility flood and presumed beyond economical repair. Miss Hartwell had commissioned the restoration primarily for sentimental reasons, not expecting the piano to ever regain its former glory. She had specifically requested that the work be done by someone outside the usual network of professional piano technicians, wanting to give an opportunity to someone who needed the work. What she hadn't expected was to find someone whose natural talent and dedication would exceed that of many certified professionals. Sterling explained that Ms. Hartwell was currently on tour in Europe but had requested detailed reports on the restoration's progress. The expert's evaluation would be forwarded to her immediately, along with photographs and recordings of the piano's current performance capabilities. Marcus was asked to remain available for further contact, a request that filled him with both excitement and anxiety about what might come next. As the inspection team prepared to leave, the elderly expert approached Marcus privately. He introduced himself as Professor William Chun, former head of piano technology at a prestigious music conservatory, and asked detailed questions about Marcus's background and training. When he learned that Marcus was entirely self-taught, Professor Chin's amazement was evident. He explained that the quality of work he had witnessed typically required years of formal training and experience. Professor Chin offered Marcus his business card and suggested that he consider pursuing formal certification in piano technology. He explained that skilled piano technicians were in high demand, especially those with the natural talent and attention to detail that Marcus had demonstrated. The conversation opened Marcus's eyes to possibilities he had never considered, career paths that could provide stability and fulfillment while utilizing skills he was only beginning to discover he possessed. Emma had remained quietly in the background during most of the inspection, but as the team prepared to leave, she approached Professor Chen and shyly asked if she could play something on the piano before it was taken away. Her request clearly touched the elderly expert, who encouraged her to perform. Emma sat at the bench and played Canon in D with the skill and passion she had developed over the past weeks, her small fingers moving confidently across the keys as beautiful music filled the room. The effect of Emma's performance on everyone present was profound. Even Sterling's professional composure cracked slightly as he watched the young girl pour her heart into the music. Professor Chun was visibly moved, commenting on Emma's natural musical ability and the obvious love she had developed for the instrument. The moment crystallized everything that the piano restoration had meant to the Chin family, not just financial necessity, but genuine passion, talent, and transformation. Part 4. 3 days passed in anxious waiting before the next communication arrived. This time, it wasn't a phone call but a personal visit from Richard Sterling, accompanied by a woman Marcus didn't recognize. She was elegantly dressed but approachable, with kind eyes that seemed to take in everything about their modest apartment with genuine interest rather than judgment. Sterling introduced her as Ms. Victoria Hartwell herself, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat as he realized he was meeting one of the world's most famous musicians. Victoria Hartwell was nothing like what Marcus had expected. Despite her wealth and fame, she possessed a warmth and authenticity that immediately put both Marcus and Emma at ease. She explained that she had cut short her European tour to come see the restored piano in person, unable to believe the reports she had received about the quality of the work. She had to see for herself the instrument that held so many childhood memories and the man who had brought it back to life. What followed was a conversation that would reshape Marcus's understanding of his own capabilities and potential. Victoria sat at the piano bench and played several pieces, her skilled fingers bringing out every nuance of tone and expression that Marcus's restoration work had made possible. She explained that she had owned dozens of pianos throughout her career, many of them worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but few had ever possessed the warmth and character that this instrument now displayed. Victoria was particularly interested in the specific techniques Marcus had used to repair the soundboard cracks and regulate the action. As he explained his process, she realized that his intuitive understanding of piano mechanics was remarkable, especially given his lack of formal training. She asked detailed questions about his background, his family situation, and his future plans, listening with the careful attention of someone who recognized exceptional talent when she encountered it. The conversation revealed that Victoria had grown up in circumstances not entirely dissimilar to Marcus's current situation. Her grandmother, the piano's original owner, had been a struggling music teacher who had saved for years to buy the Steinway. Victoria had learned to play on this very instrument as a child, developing the skills and passion that would eventually make her famous. The piano represented not just a valuable possession, but a connection to her family's history and her own musical development. Emma, initially shy in the presence of such a famous person, gradually warmed to Victoria's gentle manner and genuine interest in her musical progress. When Victoria learned about Emma's upcoming school concert, she offered to help the young girl prepare, sitting beside her at the piano bench and providing professional guidance on technique and expression. The sight of one of the world's greatest pianists patiently teaching his daughter brought tears to Marcus's eyes. Victoria's next revelation shocked everyone in the room. She had decided not to take the piano back to her own home, but to leave it permanently with the Chin family. She explained that the instrument had found its true home, a place where it was genuinely loved and appreciated rather than simply possessed. She had never seen a piano bring such joy to a family or become such a positive force in a community, and she couldn't bear to separate it from the people who had given it new life. The financial implications of this gift were staggering, but Victoria had additional plans that would address Marcus's immediate needs while opening doors to opportunities he had never imagined possible. She offered to sponsor Marcus's training at the finest piano technology school in the country, covering all expenses while providing a generous stipend to support his family during the training period. Upon completion of his certification, she would guarantee him employment, maintaining her extensive collection of instruments and those of her musical colleagues. For Emma, Victoria proposed establishing a scholarship fund that would cover private music lessons with the finest teachers, eventually leading to enrollment at a prestigious music conservatory if the young girl's talent continued to develop as expected. She had been deeply moved by Emma's natural ability and wanted to ensure that financial limitations would never prevent the child from pursuing her musical dreams. The conversation continued for hours, with Victoria sharing stories of her own musical journey and offering insights into the professional music world. She explained that truly skilled piano technicians were rare and highly valued, often earning substantial incomes while working with the world's finest musicians. She saw in Marcus not just technical skill, but the passion and dedication that separated competent craftsmen from true artists in their field. As evening approached, Victoria made one final request that surprised everyone. She asked Emma to perform at her upcoming charity gala, a high-profile event that would raise money for music education programs in underserved communities. Emma would play the restored piano in front of an audience of wealthy donors and music industry professionals, sharing the story of how the instrument had transformed her family's life and brought music to their neighborhood. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The piano that Marcus had restored out of desperate financial need would now provide the foundation for a completely new life for his family. What had begun as a simple repair job had become a catalyst for transformation, opening doors that neither Marcus nor Emma had ever dared to imagine existed. Victoria's final act before leaving was to sit at the piano one more time and play the piece that had made her famous worldwide, a haunting composition she had written years earlier called Redemption Song. As the beautiful melody filled the small apartment, Marcus realized that the title was perfect. The piano had been redeemed from water damage and neglect, his family had been redeemed from poverty and limited prospects, and he himself had been redeemed from a life of endless struggle without hope for something better. Part 5. The weeks that followed Victoria's visit passed in a whirlwind of preparation and change. True to her word, she immediately set in motion the plan she had outlined during their meeting. Marcus received enrollment papers for the American School of Piano Technology, along with detailed information about the 18-month certification program that would transform him from a talented amateur into a professionally recognized expert in his field. The scholarship arrangements for Emma were equally impressive. Victoria had contacted the city's most respected piano teacher, Professor Sarah Winters, who agreed to take Emma as a student after hearing recordings of her playing. The lessons would take place twice weekly at Professor Winters' studio, with transportation provided by Victoria's staff. Emma would also receive a new piano method book collection and access to practice rooms at the local music conservatory. Perhaps most importantly, the financial pressure that had defined Marcus's life for years was finally lifting. Victoria's advance payment for his upcoming training period meant that he could quit 2 of his 3 jobs, focusing entirely on his studies while still providing adequately for Emma's needs. For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus could envision a future that offered stability and hope rather than constant struggle. The neighborhood's reaction to these developments was overwhelmingly positive. Mrs. Rodriguez organized a celebration party in the apartment complex courtyard, with neighbors bringing food and gathering around the piano that had become a symbol of possibility and transformation. Children who had watched the restoration process with curiosity now understood that they were witnessing something truly special, and several parents inquired about music lessons for their own children. Emma's preparation for the charity gala became a community effort, with neighbors offering encouragement and advice. Mrs. Chun, the elderly woman who had played traditional Chinese melodies, spent hours helping Emma understand the emotional expression behind the notes she was playing. Mr. Thompson continued providing technical instruction, while the Morrison children served as an appreciative audience for Emma's practice sessions. The piano itself continued to be a gathering point for the community. Word had spread throughout the city about the remarkable restoration work, and Marcus began receiving inquiries from other piano owners seeking his services. While he wasn't yet ready to take on major projects without proper certification, he was able to help with minor repairs and tuning adjustments, gradually building a reputation and client base that would serve him well in his future career. Professor Chun, the expert who had first recognized Marcus's exceptional talent, became a regular visitor to the apartment. He provided additional technical guidance and shared stories of his own experiences in the piano industry. He also served as a mentor figure, helping Marcus understand the business aspects of piano technology and the importance of building relationships within the professional music community. The charity gala itself was scheduled for the following month, giving Emma time to perfect her performance while allowing Marcus to begin his formal training. Victoria had arranged for the event to be held at the city's most prestigious concert hall, with proceeds benefiting music programs in schools throughout the region. Emma would perform as part of the evening's entertainment, sharing the stage with several professional musicians and prominent local personalities. As the gala date approached, Emma's confidence and skill level continued to improve dramatically. Her natural talent, combined with excellent instruction and countless hours of practice on the beautifully restored piano, was producing remarkable results. Professor Winters reported that Emma's progress was exceptional, showing the kind of musical intelligence and emotional maturity that typically took years to develop. Marcus's own preparations were equally intensive. He had begun correspondence courses to supplement his hands-on experience, studying the theoretical aspects of piano technology and familiarizing himself with industry standards and practices. Victoria had also arranged for him to observe several master technicians at work, providing exposure to different approaches and specialized techniques that would enhance his education. The transformation in their daily life was profound. Where mornings had once been frantic rushes to multiple jobs and evening had been consumed by exhaustion, there was now time for family meals, homework help, and quiet conversations about hopes and dreams. Marcus found himself able to be truly present for Emma's childhood in ways that had been impossible during their years of financial desperation. Emma's school performance improved dramatically as well. With the stress of constant financial worry removed and her passion for music providing focus and discipline, her grades climbed steadily upward. Her teachers noticed increased confidence and engagement, and several commented on her improved ability to concentrate and complete assignments thoroughly. The piano had become more than just a musical instrument. It was a symbol of how dedication, skill, and unexpected opportunities could combine to create transformation beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Marcus often stood in their living room, late at night, looking at the gleaming ebony surface and remembering the water-damaged wreck that had been delivered just months earlier. The parallel between the piano's restoration and his family's renewal was impossible to ignore. Victoria maintained regular contact throughout this period, checking on Emma's progress and Marcus's preparation for his formal training. Her continued interest and support went far beyond what either of them had expected, reflecting her genuine care for their welfare and her recognition of the special talents they both possessed. She had become not just a benefactor, but a friend and mentor to the entire family. The final week before the gala brought both excitement and nervousness. Emma's performance had been refined to near perfection, but the prospect of playing before such a distinguished audience was daunting for any 8-year-old. Marcus worked with her on stage presence and dealing with performance anxiety, drawing on his own experiences with pressure situations during his military service. Part 6. The night of the charity gala arrived with all the glamour and significance that Victoria had promised. The concert hall was filled with the city's elite, including business leaders, politicians, and prominent figures from the arts community. Media representatives were present to document the event, and the cause being supported ensured that the evening carried genuine importance beyond mere social entertainment. Marcus and Emma arrived at the venue early, both wearing new formal clothes that Victoria had insisted on providing. Emma's dress was elegant but age-appropriate, while Marcus wore his first tuxedo, feeling both proud and slightly overwhelmed by the grandeur of the occasion. They were greeted by Victoria's staff and given a complete orientation to the evening's schedule and expectations. The restored piano had been transported to the concert hall that afternoon, positioned prominently on the stage where it gleamed under the professional lighting. Several piano technicians had worked to ensure it was perfectly tuned and regulated for the evening's performances, and their comments about the quality of Marcus's restoration work filled him with professional pride. Emma spent the early evening in a practice room backstage, running through her performance one final time while Marcus provided encouragement and support. Her chosen piece, Canon in D, had been arranged by Professor Winters to showcase Emma's developing skills while remaining within her technical capabilities. The result was a performance that would highlight both her natural talent and the months of dedicated practice. As guests arrived and the cocktail reception began, Marcus found himself unexpectedly included in conversations with some of the music industry's most influential figures. Victoria had made a point of introducing him as a rising star in piano technology, and his story of self-taught expertise and natural talent generated considerable interest among potential future clients and colleagues. The formal program began with speeches about the importance of music education and the specific programs that would benefit from the evening's fundraising efforts. Victoria herself gave a moving presentation about her own musical development and the role that access to quality instruments had played in her success. She then introduced Marcus and Emma's story, explaining how a damaged piano had become the catalyst for transformation in their lives. When Emma's performance was announced, Marcus felt his heart racing with parental pride and anxiety. He watched from the wings as his daughter walked confidently onto the stage, adjusted the piano bench with professional composure, and settled into position at the keyboard. The concert hall fell silent as she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. What followed was 6 minutes of musical magic that left the entire audience spellbound. Emma's performance combined technical precision with emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone her age. The restored piano responded beautifully to her touch, its rich tone filling the concert hall with music that spoke directly to the hearts of everyone present. The silence that followed her final notes was broken by thunderous applause that continued for several minutes. The impact of Emma's performance extended far beyond the evening's entertainment value. Several prominent music educators approached Marcus afterward, offering scholarships and opportunities for Emma's continued development. Record label executives expressed interest in following her progress, and one wealthy donor offered to establish an additional scholarship fund specifically for young musicians from disadvantaged backgrounds. Marcus's own professional prospects were equally enhanced by the evening's events. The story of his self-taught restoration expertise, combined with the obvious quality of his work as demonstrated by the piano's performance, generated numerous inquiries about his services. Business cards were exchanged, and several potential clients expressed interest in having Marcus maintain their instruments once he completed his certification. Victoria's closing remarks for the evening focused on the theme of hidden talent and unexpected opportunities. She spoke about how the piano restoration project had revealed gifts that might otherwise have remained undiscovered, and how supporting arts education created possibilities for transformation that extended far beyond individual lives to entire communities. The fundraising results exceeded all expectations, with the evening's events generating enough money to fully fund music programs in 12 schools throughout the city. Emma's performance had been particularly effective in demonstrating the potential impact of these programs, showing how access to quality music education could develop extraordinary talent regardless of economic circumstances. As the evening concluded and guests began to depart, Marcus found himself surrounded by well-wishers and new professional contacts. The business cards in his pocket represented opportunities that would have seemed impossible just months earlier, when he had been struggling to pay basic bills while working multiple menial jobs. Emma handled the attention and acclaim with remarkable grace, accepting congratulations politely while remaining grounded and humble about her achievement. Her maturity and poise impressed everyone who met her, reinforcing the belief that she possessed not just musical talent, but the character traits necessary for long-term success in a demanding profession. The drive home from the gala was quiet, both Marcus and Emma processing the magnitude of what had occurred and how dramatically their lives had changed. The apartment building that greeted them looked the same as always, but they were returning as different people with different prospects and possibilities than when they had left that morning. Epilogue: 6 months later, Marcus was halfway through his certification program at the American School of Piano Technology, excelling in all areas of study and already being sought after by professional colleagues for consultation on difficult restoration projects. His natural talent, combined with formal training and the confidence gained from his successful restoration of Victoria's piano, was creating a reputation that extended throughout the piano technology community. Emma was thriving under Professor Winter's instruction, her skills developing at a pace that amazed everyone involved in her musical education. She had been accepted into the youth program at the local conservatory and was already being discussed as a potential candidate for national music competitions. Her practice sessions on the restored piano continued to draw neighbors and friends, turning their living room into an informal community music center. The piano itself remained the centerpiece of their transformed lives, a daily reminder of how dedication, skill, and unexpected opportunities could combine to create possibilities beyond imagination. Victoria visited regularly, maintaining her role as friend and mentor while continuing to provide guidance and support for both Marcus and Emma's developing careers. The apartment building had been transformed as well, with several neighbors pursuing their own musical interests inspired by Emma's example and the community that had formed around the restored piano. Mrs. Chun had begun teaching traditional Chinese songs to local children. Mr. Thompson had started a small music appreciation group, and even Mrs. Rodriguez had begun taking piano lessons from Emma during her free time. Marcus's success had attracted attention from piano manufacturers and music institutions throughout the region. He was being courted by several prestigious organizations and had already received offers for positions that would provide financial security and professional fulfillment beyond anything he had previously imagined possible. The restoration of that water-damaged piano had indeed changed everything, not just for Marcus and Emma, but for everyone whose lives had been touched by the music and community that had grown around it. What had begun as a desperate attempt to earn money for basic necessities had become a catalyst for transformation that continued to create new possibilities and opportunities with each passing day. As Marcus looked toward the future, he understood that the real restoration hadn't been the piano at all, but rather the restoration of hope, purpose, and possibility in their lives. The skills he had discovered within himself, the talents Emma was developing, and the community they had helped create were gifts that would continue generating positive change for years to come. The story of the poor single dad who repaired a piano had become something much larger, a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of hidden talents, and the way that acts of kindness and recognition can transform lives in ways that extend far beyond immediate circumstances. Every time Emma sat down to play, every time Marcus worked on a new restoration project, and every time their neighbors gathered to share music and community, the legacy of that first repair job continued to grow and inspire. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.